Greetings, Kindred, and welcome to the Blood Sorcery Rituals. And today we're going over the level 3 ritual, Deflection of Wooded Doom. This is an oldie but a goodie. This ritual is something that I don't think I've ever seen a player Tremere not take. This stops you from getting staked. I like to see detail in things, and the fact that V5 has put that much detail into these rituals makes this a lot better to have to gain information from. The book states, by performing this ritual, the vampire protects themselves from being staked. The first stake that would pierce their heart shatters before penetrating their skin. So in other words, this puts a ward versus stake on your heart. But the wording there is something that really needs to be taken into consideration. That the first stake that would pierce their heart shatters before penetrating their skin. It's going to touch them. They shouldn't take the damage. We're going to go deeper into this and read exactly what the system has to say about it. But the stake itself shatters. This could bring so much cinematic fun into a game, especially if your players are stake happy. The ingredients are a wood splinter or shaving. So you need a little bit of wood. Most players who I've played with in a LARP setting always had a Tic Tac container full of broken toothpicks. That is what they carried on them to represent the fact that this ritual may be enacted. The process says the vampire mixes the shavings with their blood and draws a circle around themselves. They must then meditate in the circle for an hour, concluding by placing one splinter of wood under their tongue. So this is going to take an hour to do. Take that into consideration if your characters are going to be playing in a game and have this active. This isn't something where it's like, oh, I roll out of the coffin or I roll out of bed and I walk down the streets and I'm unstakeable. That's not exactly how this works. You have to perform this ritual. It takes 1 hour. Now, a lot of games, if you stop to think about it, if you're in the northern part of the United States or something like that, I have noticed that it gets darker a lot earlier and games still take place later on in the night. My game is set in Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon, it usually gets dark between 4 and 5 o'clock. We don't start gaming until 8 or 9, and we typically use the real time as the time that we're actually playing on. So it gives the ability for characters to get some stuff done before the game session actually starts. That would definitely help here. The system states, make no ritual roll until the vampire is staked. If the ritual roll is a win, the stake shatters as it touches the skin of the vampire. A critical win blinds the attacker for 2 turns, showering their face in splinters. This only works on genuine attempts at staking. Merely holding a stake against a vampire does not trigger the effect. The protection lasts until the end of the night or until the splinter is removed from under the tongue of the vampire, whichever comes first. Okay, so the system actually answers a few questions that I have here. First off, I completely understand that threatening a vampire with a stake is not enough to have the stake explode. With that, the fact that it explodes and if you get a critical, you actually blind the attacker for 2 rounds as wood shavings fly into their face from the splinters of the stake itself. That's just, I love cinematic stuff like that, and that right there is something that would not happen often, but when it does, oh, that's beautiful. But this specifically says that the protection ends until the end of the night or until the splinter is removed, which means this isn't something you can perform on the first of the month, and then as long as that splinter stays in your mouth, you're absolutely fine. It has to be done on a nightly basis, bringing what I said before with the process of having to make sure you actually have time to perform this ritual as, something that should be considered among gaming groups, unless you have specific house rules, but we're discussing exactly what the book says here. Another thing it says is that you can remove the wood from underneath the person's mouth. Who else but other Tremere and the like would know anything like that? The Banu Hakim might know that the Tremere would try those tricks and things like that. That's just such a fun little detail, is that, like, could you imagine the fight of, oh, we're going to stake this guy, hold his head, open his mouth, get that thing out of his mouth. Don't let him bite off your fingers. There's so much detail in that ritual that can just lead to a whole bunch of fun. So, Deflection of Wooded Doom is definitely one of the more popular rituals that I have ever seen in Tremere play. So, if you've used it, let me know your experiences with it. How exactly has it been a boon to your game? How has it been a blight to your game? How exactly has Deflection of Wooded Doom been a resource at all? I am Voivode Maquette, and thank you for joining me in this lesson of thaumaturgical rituals. Class dismissed.